Hi there. My name is Suze, and I work with women to find balance in their inner masculine and feminine energies so that they can feel really fulfilled in their lives and have a lot of love and connection. So, today, this is kind of like part two of a video I just did earlier today. And I titled that one Thing to Change to Have Men Chase You. And I really it's a conversation that's really has so many layers to it. And so I kind of want to get a little bit deeper into that idea. And it's around the idea of space. There are many different little tricks and tips and things to get men to chase you more, right? And I think that there's becoming a greater awareness of feminine energy and how it does work to draw men in and have them chase or pursue you more. But I really want to take a little bit more of a balanced approach to it all because I feel like then you can kind of take that a little bit too far and it can become kind of manipulative and almost ego feeding for women of having a guy chase you. And so I'm very cautious around this conversation because I don't want my information to be used in the wrong way, in a distorted feminine way. So I want to continue the conversation today about the idea of space because it's kind of ironic. As I went through my journey and for the majority of my life, I was in a very unhealthy masculine energy. And I was the one who was always doing all the things, making all the things happen, being in control, taking the lead, doing the planning, overgiving, codependent relationships, chasing the men, even though I didn't know that's what I was doing. All of those things. When I came from that and started moving into the feminine space, it really felt really good. And I've talked about it in other videos how I felt such relief. And I find that a lot of other women that I work with, when you finally allow yourself to be in your feminine energy, the relief that you feel is profound. And that can get really addicting. It can get really like, oh my God, this like huge heavy boulder that I've been carrying on my back is now gone, right? With the masculine energy being the boulder, right? The pushing and the forcing and the doing and the hustle and the struggle, all of that is that masculine energy. And so when you finally stop and you're just like, I'm just going to be and I'm going to go with the flow and I'm going to let myself feel my feelings. The danger is you can swing too far the other way, right? One of my all time favorite books is The Untethered Soul. And they talk about this, how as humans, and they have it like the pendulum of a clock, those like grandfather clocks from way back in the day. As humans, that's what we tend to do. We tend to swing the pendulum from one extreme to the other to get away from suffering or pain. But the true path of life is finding that balance in the middle. And that's where, as I like to say, that's where you have your masculine and your feminine working together. They're integrated and collaborating together. And when you reach that state, that is what I call the divine feminine state. It's not all feminine, and it's definitely healed masculine energy that's incorporated to find this balance. And I'm not going to get too much into that conversation because the whole idea of divine feminine is something I want to get into later. But it has to be both working together. And I started figuring this out because, as I said, I started letting myself go into the feminine energy, but then there's almost like this plateau and you get stuck of like, okay, what's next? Like you can feel that there's something more that you're missing, right? There's something incomplete with where I have gotten myself to in this feminine energy state. Something's still not quite right. And that's when you have to go back and look at the masculine aspect and bring it in a healthy way to come into the feminine. So, why I'm saying all of this is because as a feminine woman, particularly when you're dealing with masculine men, if you want to encourage more masculine energy from a man, or you want a man to pursue you, you want to feel pursued by a man, you want him to do more in the dynamic, you have to be in a very feminine, receptive state, right? You have to have the opposites. You being the feminine, he being the masculine. But the irony here is, I hope you guys are following me, The irony here is that in order for you to stay in the relaxed, feminine, soft, receptive space, you have to be really strong in your own inner masculine. Now, why? Because the idea of holding space is an entirely masculine aspect. The feminine energy doesn't hold space. She's not holding anything per se. She's being. The idea of holding something is the idea of supporting something, and support is entirely masculine energy. I've said before in other videos, and again, I forgot to bring it with me here today. I've said in other videos where, think of a glass of water. This is a great physical example. Think of a glass of water. Your water is your feminine energy. It can be very chaotic. It's very flowy. It doesn't really have a form. It's just in the flow of the water and the emotions, right? And your glass is your masculine energy. So the feminine, the water is not doing anything. It's just there, being. It's the cup, it's the glass, it's the masculine aspect that's holding it. So again, why this is so important relationally with men is very, very simple. Because if you watch my other video when I talked about the thing to change to have men chase you more, you'll know I'm talking about spaciousness, allowing there to be space between you and the masculine man and allowing him to come towards you. So you're not the one who's always initiating. You're not setting up the dates. You're not the one always texting good morning, good night, good afternoon, whatever. You're not doing and initiating. You are receiving from him and then expanding. Expansion is entirely feminine. Expanding on whatever he gives you. So in this space, while you are simply being and waiting for the energy to come towards you, and I don't mean waiting in a disempowering way. It's the only word I can think of right now to fill in that blank, but I don't entirely like the energy behind the word waiting. But you understand. We'll just use that word. English is really lacking in a lot of ways, I have found, with working with energy. So in this space of waiting for the masculine to give you some energy to work with, to respond to receive, you have to be really good at holding the space. Because what happens? In general, women tend to have more of an anxious attachment style. When is he going to text me? When am I going to see him again? Does he like me? How long is it going to take before this happens so that I can validate that he actually likes me? Or if you do decide to send a text, how long is it going to take before he responds? Why hasn't he responded by now? All of this clutching, frantic energy. I talked about this in that other video. It's very anxiousness. And so your inner masculine is the part of you that creates calm in the holding of the space. So having space is your most powerful tool, but can feel like your most challenging tool as a feminine, because we are very relationally focused. And in relationship, we generally move at a different rate than men do, generally. Women can do things a little bit quicker than men can, generally, when it comes to relationships. So giving space to breathe. Now, I've said to other, back in the day, I haven't used this term in a while, but it's coming to my mind, so I'm going to put it out there now. But with working with clients I've had, I call it the vacuum, right? And I kind of like that because what happens with the vacuum, right? It's pulling things up and in, it's sucking things up and in. And so it's kind of a good way to look at this. In the space that you're allowing to be between you and a masculine man, you are creating a vacuum. You're letting him have space to think, to process, to plan his next move, to miss you. So the greater work here becomes, what do I need to do with myself to create safety, stability, and calm when that anxiety wants to move me in a place that is disempowering? Because once you get into that space of frantic, clinging, desperate holding energy, now you've lost your power and you feel powerless. You feel like you're at the mercy of someone else. And that does not feel good. And 9 times out of 10, whatever you do in that space or however you might react to something if you're in that space is not going to be your highest self, and is definitely not going to be confident, and is definitely not going to really truly give you what you want, right? So resist the urge to do things out in the world when you're in that space of anxiety and the uncertainty and kind of freaking out space, right? You have to get really good at knowing yourself and having little tricks and tips and things that you know you can do really quickly that will help shift you, or that help make you feel a little bit more calm and safe and secure in the in-between uncertain space. Space is your most powerful tool, but it also can be one of the hardest to develop for women, particularly in the beginning of this journey of really getting into the feminine aspect in the arena of dating with men. You know you want a masculine man, then you have to get into the state of being that encourages, that nurtures, that brings that out. You held all the power. You may think in those moments of anxiety you don't, but you hold all the power. You just have to figure out that you do. You just have to learn how to play in the dynamic, how to be in the energy that you need to be in to get what you want in the dynamic that you know feels so much better to you. So I hope this video made some sense on space. There may be some more coming later because this is a seriously big conversation and I don't think it's talked about enough. I will say one other thing just to kind of plant a little seed that maybe I'll pick up again later and grow more on. But the greater you're able to hold space in the uncertainty and keep your calm and keep your confidence and keep taking care of yourself, is the higher value of a person you are. Because you recognize your self-worth at that point. You recognize I don't need to do anything in this moment to prove myself to anyone. I take care of myself. And I'm simply open and ready to receiving the love that is all around me. So that's a really great mindset shift. I hope that really helped some of you and inspired you to maybe think about these things a little bit differently. Thank you so much for stopping by and checking out my videos. Do check out the other ones and have a beautiful day. Bye.